Get rid of the coats and then we'll get started. And there's a couple of seats if you wanna sit down. This presentation will be around 30 minutes. So, and if you're happy to stand, that's also of course more than welcome. And it's great to see that so many found their way here to Old Town and to Watches of Scandinavia, which is a new platform, has been around since 2023. And it's a boutique, if you haven't seen it already, it's specializing in Nordic watches only, Scandinavia, hence the name, Watches of Scandinavia. And this year we're part of the Stockholm Design Week for the first time. And we're very happy about this collaboration. And this store space, for the time being, it's unique. There's discussions about maybe some international expansions in the long-term future. But at the moment, with the 20 different brands from Scandinavia, this is really the place to come and find out what Scandinavian horology is all about. And my name is Anders Modig Davin, and I'm a freelancing journalist and photographer, specializing in watches now for 20 years, and freelancing for publications like New York Times and Vanity Fair, and here in Sweden, Dagens Industri, to mention a few. But these three guys are the real main people. We're so honored to have such a fantastic panel here tonight. And I will give them a short introduction before we get started. So here we got Eero Koivisto, one of the co-founders of Claes & Koivisto Rune, who's now been around for 30 years. Arguably perhaps one of the most famous Swedish design and architecture bureaus, with anything from houses to wine glasses and watches, of course. Really working globally, making fantastic stuff on all scales. And on watches, you guys work for Ikepod and for Italian Unimatic, and also in discussion with some other brands. And here are some of the products that you guys made. And what was interesting for these Unimatic watches was that you also made the flagship store for the launch of these watches. And I thought it was quite beautiful in a space, perhaps a little bit smaller than this, to have, 5 watches? Like very, very minimalist, very Swedish somehow. And next to Eero in the middle, we have Andreas Lundquist, who has made a lot of the Halda watches, and which you may know have been also up in space on different space missions. And they are really quite an interesting design concept, where you have like a docking station on your wrist, and then you can change, either you put in a digital tool, which has been used by the astronauts or by racing drivers, or a mechanical module when you want to be more traditional. And Andreas has also a lot of experience, designing for 25 years, and worked for global brands like Electrolux and Scania as well. And in the watch world for not only Halda, but also Montblanc. I hope I'm not missing.
You're right.
Oh, yeah. And also 25 years, Ola Stray.
Exactly.
And here you see one of Ola's watches. During your 25 years, digital and physical design, some 12 patents, head of design at Atlas Copco, and also made other watches, Sjösandström, and also other non-disclosure projects in Switzerland. It's unfortunate that a lot of designers actually don't get enough recognition in the watch industry, because this thing with transparency hasn't really hit the watch industry yet. Yeah, normally everything happens around 10 years later.
Die first.
Exactly. and founder of Strayer Watches, which if you see here, a little bit of an inverted idea that we see at Halda, where you don't change the actual watch module, but you change the background. So a watch can be, your same watch can be round, or it can be square, or a bit more oblong in different shapes. Very interesting concept, if you ask me. And between the three of you, you got some 150 awards, including for the watches. And I would like to start actually with a yes or no question. Eero, has making watches or designing watches, has that made you a better designer?
What a question.
Yes or no?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think we are a team. We are not only one person. Morten Claesson is, by the way, he's here, the guy with the striped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's difficult to say, because what I think is really what we got better is small scale, because we are sort of architects in the bottom, and it's so different, the small scale of watches, I think, than architecture where everything is bigger, you know.
Yeah.
So,
And Ola, has it made you a better designer to fully dive into watches?
Yeah, I have to build on what Eero just said, because it's very different to be a designer working with big things like cars, boats, houses, etc., compared to smaller things. And I think that did it make me a better designer? It made me more patient. It made me much more collaborating with watchmakers, with operations people, because I went into the entrepreneur role much more than just being a designer, which I was in my profession. So, well, also yes, because I had to take on the fuller picture on the complete product, and it made me much more respectful towards other professions.
Yeah. And Andreas?
Without doubt, yes. I think for me it was a milestone when I started to work with Halda. I worked as an industrial designer by that time for maybe 6 or 7 years, and this was the first time I got to work on a product from A to Z, involved in everything. So it's a very holistic experience when you work with a watch, and if you're lucky enough to be able to be in charge and lead of everything, since we developed a whole new platform, down to the small screws in the watch. A lot of problem solving, very technical, that I like. So for me it was a very good fit, and I think from that point I choose to work with A to Z products exclusively since then, because I think it's so enjoyable, and you're able to go with the design intention all the way to the finish line.
Yeah. And you said also that it's by taking on the entrepreneurial role, Ola, that also expanded the role of you as a designer.
It does. I mean, I think that you have to stay humble working as a creative person, because otherwise people won't respect your work, because you have to be humble to that. This is going to be produced, this is going to be sold, this has to be loved by someone, unless you're Philip Stark, and it shouldn't be used by someone. But no, it makes you more humble, because you have to listen to many, but then still you have to keep your personality and your vision, and be committed towards that. And I think that's a thin line, and sometimes it drives you crazy, but it also keeps you really, really sharp in another way as a designer.
Yeah. And Eero, the three of you have been, as in Claes and Koivisto Rune, have been very busy this week, launching a new glass series, also a new candle for Skultuna, also new furniture. How is it different to design? What is the difference between designing a watch and a chair?
It's scale.
Apart from the scale.
I think the whole. First of all, it's a very conservative part of design. I think it's. I mean, whatever you suggest, there's always somebody who did that before.
Okay.
So it's really, really difficult to do something new. And if you're...
But isn't that the case in every design somehow?
No, well, at least in our studio, we are always trying to do a lot of research and, oh, that is done, and that is done, and that is done.
Mm-hmm.
So we always try to renew it. And I think that I think we are obsessed with different details in our studio. Has always been, not only in watches.
Mm-hmm.
But we had like experiences when we went really deep down into the graphics of the iKeyPod watch we did,
Mm-hmm.
where we were like super insisted that every single number, every single letter, every single should be one type with the same weight on it, you know, and on the dial, you know, and if it's a dot, it has to have the same weight as the dot of the type, which we had to make ourselves actually, and all that. And I know that when we worked on several projects in the watch industry, I think there's a certain, you know, oh, this is nice type for the numbers, but now we're going to use that type for the logo. And we are like, you know, no, we have to be holistic, as you said. And I think that's one of the really fun things with especially watch design.
Mm-hmm. And now we're talking a bit about the differences. What are the similarities between designing a watch and say a kitchen?
A good question. I think the similarities is that if you have a design intention and you carry it through, the process can be very similar. How you go about to solve it. Of course, they're very different as objects and functionality and so on. But the very best design to me, I think, is when you don't think about its components. It's all fused together. You don't talk about how it's engineered or how it's designed. It doesn't care because it's just one solution.
Yeah.
Perfect marriage.
I think there's a reason why the sub and the Speedy is so good. Every single thing is in balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that is distinctive for watches is the obsessiveness about proportions.
Yeah.
It's all about proportions.
Yes, I agree.
But so is chairs and architecture. And it's all one.
Yeah. But what could and I would like to ask you, Ola.
Yeah.
Other industries, from a design point of view, what can they learn from watch design? And for me, I'm thinking particularly on this idea of longevity, which is now being more and more discussed in other products as well, that the throwaway culture is not possible anymore since we've only got one planet. And also when it comes to, through design, creating value.
It's a very good question. I mean, I came from a business where products were having a lifetime at 20, say 30 years. And you can't design by trends. And we just spoke, me and Eero here, prior to that if you're working on a house, the life length of a house, I mean, look around here, it's several hundred years. So you have to work on a different perspective. And that is also, you're committing towards nature, to your environment. You're staying humble with resources. And when I decided to design a watch, because I had been doing precision tools for the watch industry in Switzerland, I wanted to bring in something of customer value. So then I started playing with interchangeability, and I wanted to do a mechanical solution to that. And it took me on a journey for many years before I found a solution that actually reflected precision, quality, Swedish engineering, our heritage, and also using recycled Swedish steel in the products, sustainably made leather, all of that. And I mean, as Priley said, there's so much watches being done, so I wanted to come in with something new. And I didn't know that at the time that Andreas and Halda was playing with interchangeability in another way, because I was doing it for 10 years, and I did beside my work as head of design, and the iteration process was so long. I had to wait 6 months, 1 year for a prototype.
All right.
It was very, very funny when DC Comics approached me and wanted me to make a special edition, Bruce Wayne at day, Batman at night, because you could change the intervention. No, it's in the cabinet behind there. So, yeah. So I mean that was some kind of recognition for that. Yeah.
Yeah, pop culture has, been part of the ongoing watch boom. Is that something that affects you as a designer, Andreas? That we see it in comics, in movies, etc.?
I think I'm influenced by everything around me.
Yeah.
And of course, if there's a big stream of certain influences, you're bound to be influenced by it somehow.
Yeah. And for you, Eero?
Yeah, well, Dick Tracy wore a iWatch.
Yeah.
Apple Watch long before the Apple Watch was invented.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's culture. Pop culture is popular culture. So I think all culture is of course inspired. We talked about it when we talked here earlier, the three of us.
I think it's interesting how certain things drive each other.
Yeah.
I mean, we can see a lot of examples how sci-fi has driven real life in many solutions, because they are really ahead of their everything in their thinking and their ability to visualize it in a credible way.
Yeah, like all, the first Alien movie with all the weird seikos, by car designer Giorgio. It's really cool.
So I think this back and forth between cultures and real life is really inspiring.
Yeah. And then now with the growing Scandinavian scene, has something crystallized that is typical Scandinavian watch design? Is there such a thing, like with a typical direction in furniture, I would say, or at least there was?
You guys answer.
I'm thinking about quality.
Yeah, I would definitely say quality, and when you're traveling.
And quality is a very open word. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, it's a keepsake, something you want to take care of, and that's why I think watches is probably one of the more sustainable products. You put a lot of energy into making it, and then you use it and love it, and you don't throw it away. It's there for a long time, probably longer than I'm going to live.
Yeah. I mean, Ola, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you before.
No, but you were speaking of Scandinavian kind of a design, and I think when you're here, you don't think about it. But when you're traveling and you go to places like Dubai or Switzerland or Germany, and you see watch magazines, you see other magazines, and you see a watch like, who on earth is going to wear that? And then, and you realize that, but it's just different style. It's not what we are used to. Yeah. And then you realize that, it's you can't sell this in Sweden, not yet at least. But and also to build on what you said, Andreas. I mean, I think there's a lot of stories about how you inherited a watch as something loved by your father or your uncle or whatever, and I mean this was immortalized in the movie Pulp Fiction with the watch story where it was worn, and it was also Olof from Nymansur who said now that's Larsson, sorry, good, that Swedes are now wearing as many or having as many watches as Italians do. 6, 7, 8 watches. So it's not just one watch anymore. You wear several watches for different occasions and style.
Yeah. And how do you feel about when you look at more current trends that a lot of people are wearing smaller watches, even down to 35, 36, but you guys have all been doing quite large watches.
Well, I mean, we don't have experiences you two guys have in watches. Where the 2 watches we made, they were, this has to be that big and that has to be that big, so we had to work with that. But I generally think it's. I mean, there are horrendously big watches out there, and there are watches which are very small. So of course it's a bit of fashion and how it feels at the time. I think even a large watch could look really great, but I think a small watch could look equally great. Yeah, I don't really.
I think it's back again to proportions.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're comfortable and you have style, it will look good on you. Even big watch, small watch, it's a matter of personality.
Yeah, we had the opening in our studio. We have a new studio 2 nights ago, and a friend of ours came, and he knows that we are sort of like watches. So he's like, "Guys, I took this today, and it was an old Nautilus with a black dial, which he bought. I think he said he bought it almost 35 years ago, something at Helsinki airport for 18,000 krona. Good deal. Anyway,
that's a Patek Philippe model today. If you pay $1 million, you'd be lucky.
And of course, it was very, very nice. It's not one of my favorite models. It's one of the few first ones I actually saw someone wear. Not in an auction house or something, but actually. And my first thinking was, wow, that's small. It's interesting because my whole idea about it, from like hundreds of images and then seen in the auction houses, was that it has a certain.
Yes.
But there are practical reasons also for the size. I mean, you choose a thinner watch if you wear maybe a suit and you have another cufflinks and so on.
But I mean, it was kind of funny. I think some years back, it was actually ladies that started stealing the men's sports watches and made kind of like a statement, wearing something that was chunkier, bigger. And I see a lot of women actually wearing my watches because of more like a statement thing. But again,
we had a strong matriarch woman in here today from a big Indian family, and she loved the Straya ones. That's innovation.
That's nice to hear.
It's smiling.
She wasn't from India last time I was checking. No, but I think there's no such right or wrong when it comes to size. I mean, it's all a matter of your personal taste. But yes, I mean, in Sweden, trend is going towards smaller, or there's a lot of talk about smaller. In Norway, people are really urging for big watches, etc. And in the US, you see 2 very, very strong trends either also.
I think it goes up and down a little bit, like dots and stripes. But you should wear the watch that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah. And there's a lot of architects that made watches, and like 10 of the Pritzker Prize winners made watches over the years, ranging from swatches to like $1 million Louis Vuittons. But nevertheless, Eero, when we spoke before, you said that watches is not architecture, it's industrial design.
Yeah, it's watch
What do
design.
you mean by that?
It's watch design. I think if you do chairs, of course you could do really a nice chair, if you're an architect, but you can do a nice chair if you're an industrial designer, or maybe you have made chairs all your life and had none of those educations, you could still do a nice chair. I think the special thing about when I see a new watch by somebody, I could immediately tell if they are really interested in watches or not. I think it's like with everything, you have to be passionate about it.
So what is for you the telltale details that will
proportions.
Proportions
between the different things.
I care for the details, small details.
But also something unique. I mean, not that you stole a dial from someone else and then
that's really
took another bezel around it, and it's so obvious when someone comes in and having done that.
You really see immediately that this is somebody who
But that's usually marketers that start up a watch brand. That's what they do. It goes really fast. They cut and paste from some images they have, and
they have an idea that it should be for this target group.
I mean, it's like we spoke about AI watches previously, and it's basically like pre-AI making a watch. So it's cut and paste, and you do something that that is a watch, and then you sell it at the 10th of a price.
But
And I think
a
what
lot
you-
of design in the world is cut and paste.
Well, yes, it is, yes.
But I think what
I
you said
give you
about
that.
passion, I think
Yeah.
that is, I think
Yeah.
the key ingredients for me
Yeah.
that really makes it stand out or not.
Yeah.
And final question, how do you look at watch design into the future? Start with you, Eero.
Oh, what a question. I'm belonging to a small group of friends who send each other wrist shots of watches, which you can't really maybe not do on social media and stuff like that. And we had a question just recently. Okay, if you could, I guess you all had it. If you could bring one watch to Easter Island or what would you take? And we had these really elaborate answers from everybody, talking about the future. And I said, and I don't even own that many of those old Hoyers from the German time. The proportion is absolutely perfect on all of them. I think so. So
the future is looking at history.
Yeah, no. I think the future is just doing extremely well proportioned watches, which can sort of be self-assured, not to be. But I'm Scandinavian, not too blingy, But that's my point.
Yeah, Andreas.
Good point.
Mm.
I think you need to let things take time. Don't rush it. That's not a good ingredients for a good result. And I hope we will see more passion again in watches, and not just functional watches. I think the whole smartwatch industry is interesting. When we did the Halda watch, which is a digital module and an analog, two worlds meeting, it was just before smartwatches, and we made a tool. And I'm not that impressed of smartwatches. I don't really think it's a watch. It's more of a computer. It has its purpose, so it's good. You can enjoy it, but to me, that's not really a watch. So I hope to see more passion, and I hope to see more honest passion in the future of watchmaking.
Ola?
We had some big changes over the last years because Apple recently, a few years back, became the biggest watch manufacturer in the world. But now you see that hype has kind of like faded, and people are buying back into mechanical watches again because there's this love, you can express yourself individually in a way you can't do by just having different screens on your iWatch. I think that the mechanical watch, yes, but especially, Swiss watch industry is the biggest in the world. It has to ramp up when it comes to creativity. Rolex, Patek Philippe, many of those brands are showing zero individuality and innovation. And last years, I've been traveling quite a lot to meet with journalists, watch pods, presenting my watch and talking innovation. The comments I get is that there is zero innovation coming from Switzerland. That's what we're lacking. They're just playing with colors. They're doing very, very small changes, and they call it an innovative feature, which it isn't. And the customers aren't buying into that. They want to see innovation. So I think and I hope that we will see more of that. You mentioned the Patek Philippe Nautilus, designed by Gerald Jenta.
No, that was small.
But he was a genius. He made so many watches that are now seen as kind of like the some of the royals in the watch world, the Audemars Piguet.
He was innovative. He changed things.
Yeah, he did. He really did that. So let's see what happens. There's a few names that are really working, but big brands are I would say, keeping them down, and they want it to be business as usual. But I think we would see more innovative products, more mechanical, absolutely. So there's a drive for that.
And I think one of the things which is cool with watches is that it's really a little mechanical marvel you can carry around.
It's a small universe.
Yeah, that's really a cool little fact, I think.
And one last thing, I mean, this used to be a men's thing, but it's definitely not anymore. There's so many women, and I'm happy that there's not just men in here, because there's so many women that are interested in this, and it's not just form and design features, having a small little butterfly or these other romantic things, but there's a genuine interest for the mechanical watch, for the beauty of that. And I mean, imagine also all of that. Yeah.
No, I also recently spoke to Piaget's creative director, and she was saying that now it's really the women's watches are also getting mechanical movements.
Yeah.
So even from a mainstream brand, it's slowly happening.
Yeah.
And are there any questions from the audience? Yeah.
So, Ola, I heard entrepreneurship mentioned quite a bit. I'm curious how you balance being an exceptional designer versus the traditional, at least in the United States, version of entrepreneur, which is being a heavy generalist. So how do you sort of maintain that balance with being an exceptional designer?
I have a very good answer to that, and I'm going to steal it from a friend of mine, a British designer. He said that you have to have many hats, and I think he stole it from Edward de Bono. You have to have the hat of the financial guy, the hat of the operations guy, the hat of the designer, creative guy, and knowing when you're wearing each hat. So it's not the creative guy that's doing the financial things. Or the
That could be interesting, though.
It is usually interesting for a while, but ends in tears. No, but I think you need to be able to part in your roles, and it's about getting to know yourself. So, you know which hat you're wearing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Then I'd say let's give these guys a big round of applause. Thank you so much. And we're staying open for another hour, so eat, drink, and be merry, and look at beautiful watches.
And you can talk to us if you have any other questions.